Let's roll. Welcome to the show. From lasers to the CNC. What a journey, let's go. Santa's in the house. Tell me how you made it. Santa's in the house. Show me how you shaped it. Craft by craft, we'll see how you got here with me.
So, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Santa and the Maker. It's episode 9. I've had a good show this evening. Hope everybody's had a good 2 weeks. Hope you got out in your shop and got some stuff done. But this show, as you know, we take a maker and find out what their story was and what their craft journey was. And then we hope to discover how they got to where they are now. And today's guest is going to be our very first, and I hope the first of very many females that we have on the show. And she thinks herself as a woodworker, but I'll be honest with you, most of us think she's a true artist. And so we're going to talk to her about that some. But if you've seen her work, you know what we're talking about. She's done photography. She's done woodworking. She tested lasers. She's got intarsia does. And now she has some CNCs that she even does. And before I bring her on, I just thought, in case you didn't know, I'd show a few of them here. But these are just a few of the things that she has made and either has on her website or is for sale. So I'm very pleased to bring on the stage here with us Skyler from Skyler Ewing Woodworking. So how are you, Skyler?
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I appreciate you coming on. So I think this is going to be an interesting show because there's a lot of us that kind of envy your abilities. So
I told my kids that I was going to be on the Santa's show. They were all like, what? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll put a good word.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Tell them you've got Santa's ear. That's what you can tell them. So, but no, like I said, I appreciate you coming on here. And so we go through from the day you were born and kind of where you were born. We all the way up till today. So I see that we got several people already in the chat over here. So hey, Ed and Greg and Pam, and then who's that last one down there? Built Smart. Good to see everybody here. But so we'll start out with the simple stuff, guys. Where were you born at?
I was born in Romania, in Bucharest, Romania.
And I'm assuming both of your parents were from there?
Yes. My whole family is from there. Nobody actually left the country other than my brother before I left.
Right. So, and what did your parents do while in Romania?
My mom worked accounting for a big corporation. My dad was a cop for 33 years.
For 33 years. So yeah, well, I was volunteer firefighter, so you know that service life then very well.
Definitely.
So, but so did you grow up in Romania?
Yes, I grew up in Romania, and I never really wanted to leave Romania. I was doing just fine there. I was in college, and I was dating this guy. I was in my second year of college, and then he won a green card lottery. So he had basically the rights to come to the US legally.
Right.
And he typically, I don't know how much you know about Romania. It's like third world country, but it's like the way there is that the women usually they have a full-time job, they raise children, they take care of the household, they do the cooking, all that stuff. Right. Where the husband, their responsibility is to just go to work and bring home a paycheck.
Right.
So my boyfriend that I was dating at that time, he won this green card lottery, and he knew how to do nothing, basically. He was almost 30 years old. He didn't know how to do laundry, how to cook, how to do anything. So his mother, when she heard that he won the green card lottery, was like, well, okay, you're going to go there. How are you going to survive? You don't know how to do anything.
Right.
And so he proposed to me and said, hey, you want to come with me to America? So I was 18, sounded fun and exciting. And I was like, sure, I'm coming. You know, was a short-lived marriage, worked about for 3 years.
Right.
But I did end up coming to America. So that's how I ended up here.
And
I was 18 when I got married, by the way. So I was 21 when I arrived to the US.
So when you said you were in college, we were going to talk about that a little bit. So you went to high school in Romania, and then
Yes.
you started college in Romania. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. And so
And
did you finish?
now
You
I
said
was
you
on
were
my
18.
second years when I knew that I was going to come to the US. I knew I
Yep.
was not going to finish college if I stayed because I was supposed to come to the US. So I just kind of stopped going to school and then just moved here.
Right. So, well, Daniel there is saying hello. So, but well, so you came to the U.S. Where did you first land in the U.S. when you got here?
I went to Cleveland, Ohio, just because there's a huge Romanian population there.
Right.
So we knew well, I didn't know anybody there, but my husband's at that time family knew somebody that was in Cleveland.
Right.
And they were helped by a different family when they came to US. So they decided they're going to do that payback and help somebody else. So they let us stay over their place and help us find a job and an apartment.
Right.
And so that's how I ended up in Cleveland. Was a huge, Romanian population there. So that's where I went.
So what was your biggest shock when you moved to the U.S.? What just was like, this is crazy. I can't believe they do this.
Well, first of all, I didn't have any money. We had some money from the wedding because we got married. So we had some money to buy tickets to come to the US, but we didn't have return tickets. So you have to make it. There's no way to go back.
Right.
And for some reason, you have to think about it. I was like, 21 years old.
Right. You're still young.
I
Right.
keep imagining that, when I get to the US, I'll be working in this small boutique on the side of the road or something. I don't know what I was thinking. But
Right.
that's kind of how I imagine it. Except that when I landed in the US, I realized I don't speak any English, not one word. So that was out of the question. It's no way I can work in a boutique.
Right.
So I landed in this country and I couldn't speak one word. So that was the biggest shock. I was like, oh, well, now what?
Yeah. How do I navigate in this world here?
Yep.
Nobody understands what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
but so
I
yeah.
don't know. I never thought about that. It's like ignorance, right? You're like,
Well,
young.
you got to remember, we all thought we knew everything between 18 and 21 years of age anyway, right?
Yep.
So, but yeah, Greg's liking all your wood in your shop there. He sees behind you there. So, and then Dennis is also saying hi.
Hi, Dennis.
So when you got here, you couldn't speak the language, that kind of stuff. I'm assuming through that population that you were with, you learned that. But the reason I'm saying that is because my sister works for a group called Camino, and what they do is Latin Americans come in and they do a lot of that, kind of what you were talking about a little
Right.
bit. It's an entire community, and they help them, get everything that they need and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
I'm assuming that's kind of what you did as well when you
Yep.
got here, right? So. But what were you taking in college at the time before you
Accounting,
accounting?
business school.
Okay. So, like numbers, did you?
I didn't really like numbers. It was like a funny situation. The way things works in Europe, I think most Europe is the grades you get in high school don't matter at all for entering a college. So I was brilliant in high school. I had perfect, like in Romania, the grades it goes from 1 to 10. I had pretty much a straight 10. So it's great. But when you apply for a college, none of that matters. You have to take a test. So
Right.
based on what college you're going, you take different subjects test. For my college that I was going to, the one that I wanted to go to, not the accounting one, it was algebra and chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't take into account any of the grades you have from high school. There's just that test alone. And usually in this college, I was trying to get a 7.5 grade. It will get you into it. But that particular year, all the med students, they had their tests a lot later than usual. And they had the test before us, and all the med students that failed their test and didn't get into med school, they got to go into this college that they take the test that I was going to, because they had the same algebra and chemistry tests.
Right.
And that particular year, you had to have like a 950 to get into that college, which was like food industry processing thing. And I didn't get into that college that I wanted to. So then I went to a local college, which I took accounting, then that's what I went into.
So it was by default, really, more than anything.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
I
good.
was not. I didn't have my heart on it. I didn't want to do accounting. My mom was an accounting. So she wanted me to do that. My dad really wanted me to be a nurse.
Well,
I have no stomach for it. Even when my kids, like, an earring come out, they're like, "Mom, can you pull my earring?" I'm like, "I can't do it." I'm like struggling. I can't do it.
yeah, I was an EMT, so you have to be able to deal with some of that. So
Yeah, I can't. My husband had shoulder surgery a few years back, and he was like bleeding. I was like, "Can you change my dressing?" I'm like, "I can't. I'm going to die in here. I'm gonna faint."
well, did you have anything at that time that you wanted to do, even though you ended up going into accounting? Was there something that you really thought that you might do if you could, or was you
Not,
still just searching at that point?
not really. I've never really had a clear vision of my future. I was never very motivated. I kind of every path I took in my life, I just kind of fell into it, and it guided me through something else. That
Right.
it's not something I was searching for it.
Well, hello, Aaron from Canada. Appreciate you joining us today. And
Hi,
Marcelo
Marcelo.
is saying hello to you. So we've got several people in the chat. So appreciate everybody coming in. If you'll look up top, I've put some of Skyler's information in case you don't know. She's got, I think, 2 YouTube channels. One's an older one, which is her photography. And then she also has her woodworking, which is sawdust and splinters. And so we've got a lot of information on there. She's also got her Facebook page. So, if you want to go on and like hers, like mine while you're here, and we'll continue to find out her journey. So you get over and you're finally starting to learn English. You're feeling more comfortable. So what happened from that point on? You said that after you divorced, what did you do for a while? Did you go into some kind of craft, or did you?
Well, my first job in the US, as I was still married with my Romanian husband, I was working for this factory. I was like a bingo tickets. You
Mhm.
package the bingo tickets and mix them and stuff. It was like slavery. They were
Yeah,
paying you like $6.65 per hour.
yeah,
And if you would go to the bathroom for more than 2 minutes, they'll come after you, be like, "Line is waiting for you. You gotta come back." And that was my first job, and I didn't love it. I stayed there for about a year, just
yeah.
a little bit less than a year. I learned the language a little bit, and then from there, I was like, I gotta move somewhere else.
Right.
And on my drive home from work to home, I would always pass by this factory that looked really nice and fancy. So I was like, I don't know what they're doing there, but I'm gonna go apply for a different job there to see what I can get.
Hmm.
So at this time, I was speaking some English, not very well. But I went into the factory, and it turns out it was Hugo Boss. They were making men's suit. And being Romanian, I had to learn how to sew. It was part of the, being a girl or a woman, you have to know how to do that. So I went there. I was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for a job." And they're like, "Yeah, we have many jobs in here. Do you know how to press clothing?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I hate pressing." They're like, "Okay, no pressing, no pressing. Can you sew?" I'm like, "I can't, but I can't make you a suit from like start to finish."
Right.
So they're like, "No, no, no, you don't have to do that. We'll just do like one small part of the suit, and we'll teach you if you don't know." I'm like, "Okay, great." So I took the job on the spot. So that's what I worked for 3 years. It was great. I learned a lot, great environment. And after a few years of that, my English was a lot better, and decided to move. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna move into new things." So I moved to Las Vegas.
Right.
So I lived there for 6 years, got an office job. Now I was speaking English. I was able to have an office job. I was working for a healthcare company. I worked there for 3 years. I was an overpayment analyst, and did a computer job for a few years. And then that's kind of when I decided I don't want to ever work for another company again. I want to do my own thing.
Right.
So I started my first ever business. I bought a gym. So I started the gym from ground up, and from there did many businesses, and now I'm here.
so, so, well,
So
you've
at
had
the age of 23, I started the business, and here I am.
that's great. I mean, that's that in a way that is sort of the American dream. You've come in and made your way. So that's pretty awesome. I'll give
Yeah,
you full credit for doing that.
for the first 2 years, I still worked a job. I
Yep.
had my daytime job, but I also had the business. So 25, I can say since I was 25, I've never worked for somebody else again.
That's awesome. So, well, so let's get into. I'm assuming that photography would be considered your first craft. Is that kind of where you started, or did you have some
No,
maybe some art or
I had
something?
other things before. I took some drawing classes, painting classes.
Right,
I took sewing. I wanted to have this business of making bathing suits. And because I already had my experience with sewing from Hugo Boss.
right,
And so I didn't know how to make any bathing suits. I had no idea. So I found this lady, she was a seamstress, and I hired her that I could go to her shop and help her and work there for 6 months straight for 8 hours a day. I would go there and pay her 4 hours so I can work with her and learn the craft.
yeah,
So I did that for about 6 months and bought a whole bunch of sewing machines and ended up learning how to make bathing suits and made the whole line, hired a few models, got a website. I was ready to launch. And then we took a vacation to the Caribbean in Nevis. And I had a couple walked up to me while I was wearing one of my bathing suits. And the wife was like, I really love your bathing suits. Where did you buy it? I'm like, my heart grew 3 sizes. I'm like, I made it.
yes.
I sell these things. So I already had a website. It was not public yet. So I sold her a bathing suit. She left me a great review. She loved it. But then my husband looked at me like, is this what you want to do? Sit there and sew bathing suits?
Right.
And I really thought about it. I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I already hired a model. I had like the website up, all the photos and stuff. So I had to step back from that. I was like, yeah, not gonna sew things.
Right.
And now I hate sewing. My husband has many pants in his hands. He's like, can you hem these pants for me? I've been waiting for 2 years there, or fix my pocket or replace the pocket. I'm like, I hate sewing. I'm not gonna do it.
Can we pay somebody? That's what.
Yeah, my neighbor is a seamstress. I'm like, I'll just take it to her.
Yeah, well, hello
So
from the UK.
I went through many hobbies. I had like made Christmas cards, handmade Christmas cards. I went through a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, well, that's funny you say that. Some of you, not everybody who's on the chat knows who I'm a professional Santa, and we went to a Santa school. They actually have Santa schools
I've
to
seen
help
some
us.
photos of that. I'm like, oh my God, there's this big table of old Santas.
Yep. So, but the interesting part is my wife has learned how to make wax stamps to make the cards and stuff with. So she's got into that pretty heavy since that last class.
Awesome.
So, but anyway, we've got Kilroy's here today, and then we've got Chuck's in here, and then Roy carves wood spirits. And I'll be honest, I tried wood carving one time, and in one of my previous shows, I showed a little wood carving that I made. It was about this big. It was supposed to be a bear. Looks like a dog. So that was my extent for as far as wood carving.
I bought some carving chisels, and I came home. I was so excited about it. I felt like I could do it.
Yeah.
And within 10 minutes, I was holding the piece of wood, and I drove the chisel straight into my thumb. I was like, yep, I'm done. I don't need to do that again. I've done some power carving. Power carving is different.
Yeah. And I never did get into the power carving any. I did, you wrap your thumb up like you said and all that stuff and keep from doing that. But yeah, I had one of the guys that was in the woodworking club. He was a big time carver. And he was like, just look at the wood and you'll see what to get rid of. And I looked at it and I was like, no, I don't. So, it was kind of difficult, but, so how did you get, cause like I said, photography seems like your first thing that you ended up with YouTube. How did you get to that photography part of it? What made you get into that?
I bought when the first iPad came out with a pen, and I bought Corel,
right.
For editing
Corel
things, and just Corel, like drawing programs basically. And I decided that, well, I love Corel, but I want to learn Photoshop because I heard Photoshop was a lot more powerful and you can do things. And at that time I had my first daughter, which was a baby. I had so many photos of her. I'm like, I just want to edit her photos and make them amazing. So I learned Photoshop. I downloaded the Photoshop. I started learning it. I learned it. And then I realized that I was limited by my photo quality because I was taking all the photos with my phone. doesn't have enough pixels. It was kind of like, you can do so much with it, but not too much.
Right.
So then I decided to buy a camera and learn photography. So I bought a Nikon fancy camera and started learning that and taking photos. And I wasn't going to start a business on it, or my plan was just to be able to edit my kids' photos. And then I bought this backgrounds from, it was a company, I think was called, what was it called? Replica Surfaces. They make these backgrounds that are like 2 feet by 2 feet. They're not great backgrounds, but at that time I thought they were great. So I bought these backgrounds and I was taking photos with it just to practice. And I was posting them on their Facebook page. And there were so many small businesses that were buying their products, and they were trying to learn photography to take photos of their products for their websites. And my photos seemed to stand out because a lot of those businesses reached out to me and said, hey, can you take photos of my products? I'll pay you for it. So that's how I started. And within a very short time, I was like full-time photographer, even though that was never my intention. Now I was like doing all these photos, and it just kind of grew from there, even though I never intended to be so.
Right. And so at what point did you say, well, maybe I should put some of this on YouTube or Facebook, or how did you start that part of it?
I was very passionate about learning how to edit the photos. Like taking the photos was, I loved it, but editing it, and I tried a whole bunch of softwares, and I just loved editing the photos. And because I took some, like I said, I took some drawing classes, some painting classes, and I was not good at that at all. So photography for me was like so much easier, because it's like, now I don't have to get the proportions right because I already photographed it. I just have to play with the color and make it pleasing to the eye. So I learned all these softwares. So then I was like, I feel like I had all this knowledge. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And my first thought was, I'm going to be a faceless YouTube channel. I'm just going to show photo editing, show software, show how to do it. So that's how I started. And then shortly after, I realized it was very limited. Like I had so much more. I wanted to show my backgrounds. I want to show my products I was using. I was already being contacted by companies that wanted me to review their products, which was very hard to review if you don't show your face. So I started showing my face and started making videos, and I just kind of went from there. And it never got a lot of traction. My YouTube channel for photography never got above 14,000 at the time.
Well, you can tell you have an eye with the work that you do. And I don't think anybody would disagree with just a few things that I showed a minute ago. That ability in your photography really works well for you when you're doing either your woodworking or your intarsia or anything like that. And I will also say this, your ability as far as the camera and knowing the steps involved when you got your CNC, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and the last photo that I showed where you take the multiple colors and you did intarsia that you've actually inlaid inside that block of wood, that's amazing. So
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike's even saying that's a great carving you've got there. And then Greg, who's also into nature photography, said he'd be headed over to see your photography channel as well. So
Nice.
But so you got into photography, you got into the YouTube, and then I guess you decided you wanted to do some woodworking, or was there something you wanted to make, or?
No, the way I got into woodworking is I had my youngest daughter. She had this desk in her room, was bright red. We had like a solid wood desk that we had for 20 years. Really good desk. And one day she came to me and said, Mom, I need a new desk. And I said, well, no, you don't. You have a perfectly fine desk. She's like, well, I hate it. It's red. I want the desk that is, light green.
Right.
So I said, well, how about if I paint it? So she said, okay, if you can paint it light green, I'll take that. And I never painted anything, so I had no idea how to do that. So I started watching YouTube videos on how to paint furniture. And most of the furniture painting videos that are out there were about furniture flippers, people that go and buy cheap furniture from Goodwill or something for $5, $10. They change the drawer, the hardware, they repaint it, and they sell it for a few $100.
Right.
So I watch a whole bunch of those videos. So I learned how to repaint my daughter's desk, which I did it completely wrong because I didn't know you can just scuff sand and repaint on top. I removed the whole paint. I sanded that desk to bare wood. So I repainted and it looked amazing. And she loved it. And that was kind of a boost of her ego. I was like, oh my God, I did this thing. I did it by myself. I had no experience. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
So then by watching those videos of people flipping furniture, I noticed that a lot of the furniture that they buy, they were missing a leg, the drawer was broken, or there was always some issues with it. And I had no woodworking experience. I was thinking, well, if I want to do that, I don't know how to fix any of those things. So I wonder if there's any woodworking classes around me that will teach me that. So I went on the computer and typed in woodworking classes around me. And I found this lady. She is a French lady, and she teaches woodworking for women, introduction to power tools. So I signed up for her class, and it was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And on the class, we were supposed to make a coffee table. So I went to her class. We're supposed to be 3 people in the class. When I got there, it was just me. She opened the door and she said, well, Skyler, thank you for coming, but the other 2 people canceled because it's before Thanksgiving. Do you still want to do the class? If you're uncomfortable with this, we can reschedule it. I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. It's just me. So I spent like 4 hours with this lady, and she showed me all her shop, all her tools. We built a coffee table. I still have it. And the coffee table is just from construction lumber, 2x2, pine lumber. And but she showed me all her tools. I got to ask so many questions. I wanted to do photography, props. I asked her, how can I do this? How can I do that? So I was super excited. After 4 hours with her, I came home with a coffee table. And I couldn't stop talking about it. Like my husband's family was here visiting for Thanksgiving, and all I could talk about is like my woodworking class. So for Christmas, my husband surprised me with a DeWalt job site table saw and a chop saw.
Right.
So those are the first 2 tools that I had. I had no other tools. I didn't know how to use them. It was in the garage, underneath my house, sharing with all the other stuff that was stored there. And I didn't turn any of those things on for a few weeks while I watched videos on how to use them because I didn't know how to use any of those things. And then within 3 months, I already had a router table, I had a planer, I had other tools. I started building my shop furniture. And so that was like the first class I took was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. June 1st was when I started my Sawdust and Splinter YouTube channel, showing people how to do woodworking, even though I had no idea how to do woodworking.
So yeah, well, the rule is you're not a true woodworker until you have a table saw. So you were well on your way from the very beginning. So
yeah, I really didn't know how to do anything. When I built my shop furniture, I didn't even know how to use a drill.
right.
I was, my first thing was like, oh, I'll build a bench. Or build an outfit table for my table saw. So I went to my garage and I started putting things together with 2x4s and whatever I bought. And I was crying every time I was drilling, putting in a screw because I was stripping every single screw. And I didn't know why, even though my husband told me before, when he bought me the tools, he said, you don't want to use Phillips screw, you want to use the star ones because they don't strip as easily. So I bought the star one and all the sizes. So I was building all this furniture, and every single screw will go in halfway and then we'll start stripping. And then I will put another one on, and halfway we'll start stripping. So I was like basically crying in the garage. I'm like, I must be the most stupidest person on earth because I can't even put in a screw. So my husband came to visit in the shop, and he was like, what's the matter? I'm like, I just can't put screw in. Nothing stays together. So he took in the drill and was like, okay, well, give me the right attachment for it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, yeah, it's a different size. This is too small. I'm like, I didn't know they come in different sizes for the star. I just thought if the star is just star and that's what should fit.
Yeah.
So I really knew nothing about woodworking.
Right. Well, I mean, but you're just like anybody else. And I mean, there's some that's probably in the chat, and I wasn't lucky enough to be like this, but there's some in the chat that their dad did it, or their uncle or something like that they got to hang on their hip. And so I kind of learned sort of like you're talking about. I was 13, 14 years old, and my engineering brain was starting to ramp up at that point. And for some reason, I thought I could make a pool table for me and my brother out of a piece of 4x8 sheet of plywood. And so that was the very first attempt I ever had at any kind of woodworking. And I wish I had a picture of that thing, because it was it was something else. But it over time I started doing some lathe work, and then got a like I said, I got the table saw and all that kind of stuff, and started doing some cabinet work and that kind of thing. But then I went and joined a woodworking group that was in our county. And when I joined that woodworking group, at that time we had the old guys who were way above what I'd ever done. And just to learn from all those guys, it was a real learning experience to listen to what. And then eventually they made me one of the presidents for a couple years of the group. And so even then I was still going back and asking them, hey, what do you think about how do we do so and so? So, we all learn basically the same way you have. It's just going out and doing, and you don't know what you don't know. So
Yep, that's awesome.
yeah.
I remember when I was first started posting videos, and I would, post something like, do this, how to do this thing, and I would, do something. And then the comments in the videos would be like from clearly woodworkers that have been doing for 30 plus years with experience, and they would give advice and they'll be very nice. And I'll be like, why am I doing this? Those people are like so much more advanced. I can't, but I learned from it. I took every comment and I learned from it. So it was great. I feel like it was like free teaching for me, for free lessons. I was trying to say something and people would be like, no, this is how you should do it better. So I was like, okay, now I know how to do it.
Yeah. Well, here's a perfect example. Cedar Point Woodwork or Wood Shop. He loves hearing stories about what people got started hooked on woodworking. He was born into it. Yeah. Like I said, I took an interest at about 13 years of age, and slowly learned that. Now, of course, took the wood shop in class in high school and all that kind of stuff too. So, but yeah, once you get the equipment, that's when you really start to learn. And the funny thing is some of y'all know that I've just bought the Genmitsu 4040, and
How do
my
you like
back.
that?
Yeah. Well, so far, if I can understand it, because the reason I say that, I took CNC classes back in college, and I learned to actually do the G code programming. Okay. But there has been so much changed as far as how operations work versus when I was doing it, because at that time it was all just for metalworking. And so I'm having to, I had a incident the other day where I was going to make a little tray. I went down and pocketed out a certain section, and then I pocketed out 2 holes. And when I pocketed those holes out, then I was going to go down and put words in each one of the pockets. Well, what I forgot to do was to set my retract correctly when I messed it up the first time, because I didn't set it at 0.06. I set it at 0.6. So it said, it went down into the pocket. So I said, okay, well, I'll go back in and take that pocket out deeper, and then I'll go back and put the words in. But I did not fix the depth for the words. So when it went down in on the first one, and it did it real light, and then it came up half the way, and then it went all the way across the piece to the other pocket over there. And I'm like, oh man. So that's the learning curve I have. And it's for me, it's frustrating from the perspective of, I feel like, oh, I know what that G code means. I know what that G code means, but I'm having to get back into that mentality again.
Yep.
So
a couple of years ago, I had a company reach out to me. They wanted to send me a CNC for review. And I didn't know anything about CNCs. I didn't even know what the CNC was. So I looked it up. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. But I'm like, I can't just accept this CNC to review it if I've never used one. So I saw that my local Rockler store, they had CNC classes. So I'm like, I'm going to go take a class, learn how to use it. Then I can get back to these people and maybe review their CNC. So I paid for this class. I went for the class, and everything that instructor was saying was like Chinese to me. I couldn't understand one word. I stayed there for the class was like a 4-hour class, and I was there for 20 minutes. I had to excuse myself. I'm like, I'm leaving. I do not understand anything. So I got back to the company. I was like, I can't review your CNC. I don't understand the thing. I don't know how this thing works. I don't want it. Right. But now having one and actually have a software that is intuitive and CNC is good. It's so much easier. It's like, I don't know all that fuss was in that class, because none of that seems to apply.
Yeah, well, what I thought was kind of interesting is I remember when you were kind of fighting it a little bit. And I didn't mention it a while ago, but Skyler's also a co-host every once in a while on Shop Talk Live, and she is done a lot of scroll saw work prior to getting her CNC and that kind of stuff. And she did great with it. And I think her and Steve from that same show were having a little bit of argument about the fact that he wanted her to get a CNC, that it would make your life a little easier. And I think she was kind of resistive to it to begin with. Is that correct?
Yes, I still feel like a lot of the work should not be done on a CNC. I have tried to do Intarsia on a CNC and it works. I've converted some, SVG files and was able to cut it on the CNC, and every piece fits perfectly. It just doesn't feel right. I feel like Intarsia should be done by hand, should be done by a scroll saw. It's just not right. Now, cutting just a, cross that you sell, and you would normally do it on a bandsaw and then use a flush trim on a, router table with a template. I don't mind doing that on a CNC. It's going to be the same result. I don't take pride on being handmade of that. But an Intarsia should be done by hand. It's just the way.
And we were talking about a little while ago when I was talking about the woodworking club that I was in and the old guys. Now that's an argument, and all these guys or guys and gals that are in the chat will know this as well. If you're talking to an older crafter of any kind versus the way we do it now, their way's always better. And so it's a balancing act depending on what you want to do with it. And I can totally understand what you're talking about as far as you don't feel quite right with it. But at the same time, the time you can save using the machine to do like the Intarsia versus now, for me, I'm not a scroll saw. I've got one, and it just sits over there and collects the dust from the other machines. But I tried. I just don't have the finesse for a machine like that. So
you see, I feel like I'm okay with using the CNC for cutting the thicker material, or if you work with really dense material like bloodwood, purple heart, because scroll saw just cannot cut that properly. The blade will deflect. It's just too dense. Yep. So I can cut that with the CNC. But if I'm working with a 1/2 inch material, I can cut it better and faster with my scroll saw than I can do with the CNC. It's just by the time I program all the G codes and do all of that stuff, I'm already done with it on the scroll saw.
Yeah, well,
but
like I said,
the thicker material is just easier with the CNC.
So Jack said that, going back to the old guys, they said the same thing about the table saw in the early days, that was cheating. You should use a hand saw and those kind of things. So yeah, Jack, I remember those days when they talked about it being like that. But you take and you get into all the different woodworking, and you started putting some stuff. You got and I didn't even put it up here. I'm sorry. You got a website that you actually sell your stuff on, and you went from photography and you started doing your woodworking in your YouTube on that as well, and then you started growing your viewers and that kind of stuff. So at what point between all that did you start testing like some lasers? Because I know you've done some of that. And
that was pretty early on. I had my first laser company that reached out to me. I didn't even have 1,000 subscribers yet. I was not monetized. And I believe it was the Longer company. They wanted me to review one of their lasers. And I remember they emailed me and I was like, what is a laser? Like, I had no idea what a laser was. And they sent me some videos. They sent me the link to it. I'm like, well, I don't know if I know how to use that. I'm not a very computer skilled person. And they were like, well, no worries. You're going to figure it out. It's easy. We'll just send it to you. So they sent me the Longer. They sent me their 10-watt diode laser. It was an open frame. And I didn't even have 1,000 subscribers. So I did that. And I'd never done engraving business. So for me, having a laser was not important on that. Mm-hmm. But what I realized I could do with a 10-watt laser is that I could do inlays, which at that time I was doing inlays with a router with bushings, like a hand router.
Yeah.
So that was never really completely accurate. It was always hard fitting. But having a laser and just a 10-watt laser, I realized I can do inlays really easily and all the pieces will fit really, really nicely. So I was
Yep.
very excited about that. That was my first review. So that was the 10-watt, and then they sent me the 20-watt, the 30-watt, the 40-watt. Then X-Tool reached out to me. Once you do one review, then pretty much everybody else will reach out to you. So I've been doing woodworking now for 3 years, and I reviewed, I think, 36 lasers in 3 years.
Right. Yeah, and you've got to the point now where you think you're done with reviewing lasers.
I am completely done. I can officially say I will never review a laser again.
Right. So what do you want to do next? Is there another craft that you see down the road that you potentially would want to do, or even, well, let me back up. Let me ask you another question first, because this was interesting to me. When Skyler got started in her CNC, she actually, we were talking about how your attention to detail and that kind of stuff, and you were doing your inlays, and I don't know if you've got one laying there, but where you were cutting your boards in half to see how far it went down. So what she actually did, she actually cut her inlay out, cut the other piece, put it together, and then she would cut it to see how far down it went to verify where it was at.
I still have some examples here. I can show it to you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, she went far as that, and a lot of us would just take, and if it fits, and we can take that top coat off, and it looks good, then we would probably leave it alone. But she went the extra step here, and she'll show you what she's talking about.
Now, here
let
is
me make
I was doing this. If you go to my website, you will see my cherry branch inlay cutting board. And I took the smallest flower out of the cutting board because I felt like that was the most challenging one, if there was a challenging piece in the cutting board. So I took the smallest flower and did the inlay on this end grain piece here. And then once I did the inlay, I cut it in half. And I wanted to make sure that there was no gaps, everything was looking great. So that's the way my inlay look, and I was very happy with that. So that's the way it should look. That was my smallest flower. There was a piece there that chipped off. That's because there's no glue in here. This is just the wood on wood, zero glue, just, dry fit together.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna show you what not the way that it should not look like.
Now, how many in chat do the same thing? How many have looked at their actual inlay to make sure it has went all the way down? I know we can do it by using the numbers and that kind of stuff, but how many have actually taken the time?
Here is another inlay. You can see another piece chipped off in there and stuff. But this one, we got a big gap in there, and that big gap, when you have a cutting board, it will cause big problem because moisture will go in there and it can either grow bacteria or it can cause your board to crack. So those gaps are not appropriate. I've done lots of testing when I did my inlay cutting boards. I think I did 3 weeks straight of just making inlays, test pieces like this, cutting them, different bits, see what works for me, what settings work for me. And that's how I landed on what I did.
So yeah, that was pretty amazing to me when I saw you had done that. Now, when you did that, how much room did you leave any room as far as for glue, or do you pretty much just make sure it's a friction fit?
No, I did leave about 0.5 millimeter.
Okay.
It doesn't need much because when you have end grain, the end grain basically sucks the glue in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really hold any. It's mostly on the edge.
Yeah, and so let's go back just a little bit as far as, and we'll do it on a couple of things, because I'd like to hear your points on this. So we're going to talk a little bit about what was most frustrating, but we'll start with your woodworking. What was the most? I know you were talking earlier about you were crying at one point trying to figure out how to get the screws in, but what has been your most frustrating, first of all, with woodworking, and then we'll talk about as far as your CNC right now that you've been working with. What's those most frustrating in both those aspects?
My most frustrating part of it woodworking was probably dust collection.
Right.
I've been watching YouTube and I see all these YouTubers that have like a lab style YouTube studio where everything is clean. There's not a piece of dust in it. Everything gets organized and completely clean surfaces, no dust. And that's what I was kind of striving for. And my first dust collector that I bought was a very high-end dust collector, was about $2,400.
Hmm.
And I thought this is going to solve all my problems and I'm going to have dust-free shop. And that is not the case because your tools will produce dust that does not go in the dust collector, like especially a chop saw.
Yeah.
Just dust just goes everywhere. And the table saw, if you don't make cut through and you just do like a data or something, all that dust just comes in the table and stuff.
Yep.
So I learned that that was just a myth. You cannot get a dust-free shop. And I ended up, I have 3 big dust collectors in my shop, and yet every surface of my shop is full of dust.
Yep. And it's that super fine dust 99% of the time anyway.
Yep.
So, and no matter how many microns your filter or
Yep.
anything, it's not going to let it all.
Especially my drum sander. That was the biggest issue, getting a dust collector for my drum sander, because if you get something that has a filter, the filter gets clogged up after running a few boards through it. So even though your bag is empty, it doesn't have any dust, the filter is caked up. If you get something that has a bag on top, so it doesn't have a filter, dust just goes right through it and it's in the air now. Every time you turn it on, you see this poof of dust just coming in your shop.
Oh yeah.
So-
Well, so what about the CNC side? What's been your most frustrating part on learning that?
I think the most frustrating part, well, when I order my CNC, I order it just before Christmas. And the first thing I did is I bought the software. And I worked on the software. The CNC didn't arrive until May. But I had all these months where I learned the software, and I was very confident that I knew how to use the software. So when the CNC came, I knew exactly what I needed to do. What I found frustrated is there was no real good beginner videos. So even the Onefinity, I have the Onefinity CNC, and the thing they tell you, the first thing you need to do when you get your CNC is flatten your spoil board.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true at all, because first of all, you don't need to flatten it right away. But then also, to flatten your spoil board, you need to put your X and Y in the middle of the board, which they don't show you how to do it. So I had this spoil board that I was like, okay, I'm going to flatten it, but I did not know how to put my X and Y in the middle of the board. And I could not find a video showing how to do that. So I was just using the corner, like with the probe.
Yeah.
So every time I tried to import the file that Onefinity gives you to do, it was telling me, well, the machine is trying to cut outside of the limits. You cannot do that. So I could not flatten my spoil board for months because I couldn't figure it out how to. I was able to do precise end grain cutting board inlays before I surfaced my spoil board.
Oh, board.
Like I was like, how stupid is that? Like, why did they tell you that's the first thing you need to do when it's so complicated?
Right.
Like, you can do everything else before you do that.
Well, it's like when you get a CO2 like this one over here, and they tell you have to take and get all your mirrors correct. And the first time you try to move those things, and it was here, and that's up here, and it's down here, and it's over here, and you're like, I just can't figure this out. So
That's why I like the X2 CO2, because everything is like, has the lasers and makes it easy.
Oh yeah. So, but that was your most frustrating as far as that. What's been your most rewarding in both of those? What has made you just say, I know what I'm doing, or what's been your most rewarding all the way around?
The fact that I only had the CNC for a few months now, yet I mean, obviously I already paid for it because I bought it and I paid for it, but in a few months I already made almost all the money I paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to be a lot easier to make money with a CNC than it is to make with a laser or just traditional woodworking. It just seems to be more efficient of making money.
Right.
Because
So,
it works there in the background while I'm doing other stuff. Like I'm still doing intarsia stuff, like me making my Christmas trees. So while I'm sitting here and hand sanding and hand shaping those Christmas trees, that CNC is working there, making 5 products while I finish one by hand making it.
right. Yeah. Well, I guess part of it's what you enjoy too, because if you're able to put your abilities into it and really take your time and figure out everything, that helps a lot as well, as far as the joy in what you're doing. So, but Marcelo, he says he's from Brazil and he loves your videos, and they come up with various project ideas. So
Thank you.
you're helping people with your videos. And I'll be honest with you, the first time I saw any of your videos, I actually watched a few of your photo videos. because you were talking about how to use light in order
Right.
to do an object and to take your photos and that kind of stuff to put on your website or whatever. Not I had a heck of a time when I first started with that, but then I bought one of the little boxes that you can put it in with a light on it and all that kind of stuff, and that helped a lot. But just seeing how you were doing it and that kind of stuff was
Yeah, I
really
had a
good.
video showing how to make one of those light boxes.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so that was the first video that I watched on you. But like I said, if the people in chat, we've got 38 people watching. It looks like, and give us a thumbs up and all that, so the YouTube algorithm will do its thing and know that we're enjoying listening to Skyler and her venture through all this. Now, you have told us what you're frustrating, and so now we'll get to the part that I asked a minute ago and then change my way. What other craft would you like to see? What do you see coming down the road that you would like to try, or um
I don't know. I mean, I've tried many crafts over the years. I've done
right.
stained glass, I've done mosaic, and I think I would like to incorporate some of that with my woodworking. I feel like making jewelry boxes with like a stained glass lid would be interesting. I have done some mosaic crosses. They're all sold out. I told myself I'll make more, just didn't have the time for it. And that's another reason why I bought the CNC. Is like I'm a one-person operation.
Mhm.
So I make all the products, I photograph them, I promote them, I ship them. It's just me.
Right.
So I can only do so much. For example, last year before Christmas, my store had 250 items in stock. This year, right now, I have 140, even though I've been trying all year to go up and replenish that stock because the business is growing, which is a great thing. It's only so much stuff I can make on one person. I work 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, yet my stock, it's 140 items. I cannot make more because things are selling as I make them. So that's why I want to buy the CNC. So while I'm working on something, the CNC, it's like an employee. It makes something too.
Yeah.
And hopefully my stock will go up and I can sell more stuff and stay afloat. But there's only so much time and only so many things I can make.
Right. And so I just looked. You were talking earlier about where you started at. When did you get your shop that you're in now? When did you get that built?
Well, I started, like I said, I started in a 2-car garage underneath my
Right.
house. And if you go back to my videos, you will see that because I started the YouTube channel. So you can see that I was very cramped and, not a lot of space. And then I have not taken any money out of the money I was making for woodworking and my YouTube. And I took all that money into building a new shop, which is still on my property, it's just across the driveway. But I was able to build the shop that I'm in now. And when I moved here, it seemed huge from moving a 2-car garage. But now it's so full, it feels very small and cramped. I
Yep.
wish I
That's
built
and
it
that's the way
bigger.
that's the way it always happens. Yeah, I've got plenty of room, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, where am I going to put this?
Yep.
So I mean, that's just this is just a small 10 by 16 building that I took and insulated and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't very long after I got in here. I'm like, yeah, I don't have enough room, so now I've got stuff in here and in my garage as well. So, but Donna said she loves watching Skylar's videos from Mount Airy, better known as Mayberry. So,
Thanks, Anna.
so, but so what has the UV printing or any of that other stuff piqued any of your interest at all?
Not
Or
really. I mean, I've did it. They reached out to me. They wanted me to review some machines. I did it. They definitely have some potential. If you can use it in your business, they have a potential. Um, for if you go look on my website of the things I sell, you will see pretty much none of my things are laser engraved or UV printed. It's just not the things that I do. Um, Not because there's anything wrong with it. You can do it. I don't have time for it. I do other things.
Mhm.
And the things that made me the most money when it comes to lasers was I used to sell acrylic templates. So being a woodworker, I would make projects and I would have templates and I would sell a lot of templates. And in fact, it was so popular that I was selling so many templates that I had no time for woodworking. So I would come to the shop and I would spend a few hours just cutting templates and then I have to like pack them and ship them. And the day was gone and I'm like, I didn't do any woodworking.
Yeah.
So last year I had to make the hard decision to give up on templates. I had this big CO2 laser. It was making all this money. It was about 30% of my business. I was like, I can't be doing this because I don't want to do that. I felt like I was working back in a factory again. I wanted
Right.
to do some woodworking and I just didn't have time for it.
Yeah.
So I gave that part of the business to Derek at Derek Smiley Woodworking. So I gave him all my templates and I said, here is my files. You can sell all the templates. I don't want to sell templates ever again. So I gave up on that. And I just wanted to do woodworking because that's what I wanted. I love doing it. That's what I wanted to do. But I was still doing laser reviews and that was still taking a lot of my time. So I did that for until now. Now I'm finally fulfilled all my obligations and contracts. So now I can say, okay, I'm done with lasers. I don't need to do that anymore. Now I really have more time for my woodworking because
Right.
that was taking too much of my time as well.
Yeah, I understand that. So the thing is and you kind of hit on it a little bit, is you start this out, and probably everybody in chat has the same issue, as far as you start out with, this is your passion, this is what you want to do, and then you get an LLC. I've got LLCs. We all get some
Yep.
kind of LLC so we can go to the craft shows or whatever, because you have to have your EIN numbers and all these other kind of things that they're requiring at these craft shows. And so at some point you have to be really careful about the fact that, I hope this doesn't turn into, like you're talking about, where your templates just would take up all your time and you weren't being able to be creative.
Right.
And so when that happens, it can be really frustrating. So I
Yep.
can understand that.
Well,
So
the way I look at it is like we only have so much time, right? Like
yeah.
money, other things, I can go get more or make more. Time, we only have so much time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So if I take time away from that to cut templates or make a YouTube video or do whatever I do, that's time I'm taking away from something else, like doing the things that I love, spending time with my family, my children. So there's always a trade-off. So you have to make sure that trade-off is really worth it. Do I want to take this time to do this? Because it's that time you're taking away from something else.
Yeah.
And cutting templates was not my thing. Reviewing lasers was not my thing. Reviewing UV printer was not my thing. So I just don't want to spend any more time on that because that's time that is being taken away from something else that I love doing.
Yep. So LG 7129 is asking how big your shop is now.
1,200 square feet. There's
1,200.
2 rooms. I have this room here. I don't know how you can see in here. It's a big mess right now, but this is about how big is in here. And then there is another room out that door over there. And that's my finishing room where it is dust free. And that's where I have my lasers and that's where I do my finishing.
So very nice layout, and you can tell it's 100% wood shop because all everything's laying everywhere. So and the what's the rule? Any flat surface is going to get stuff piled
Yep.
on top of it anywhere. So, but so he also said thank you for all your help over the last year as well. So, but so is anybody got any questions in the chat for Skyler while we're kind of wrapping this up? We've talked a little bit about where she came from and where her journey up to this point, and we kind of know. And you were talking about some of the things you'd like to do with woodworking in the future. Are you gonna go into any kind of resins with your woodworking some, or you
I've been doing a lot of resin, like epoxy. I've done lots of epoxy.
epoxy? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And
So
I started doing epoxy 2 years ago. And I didn't know anything about epoxy. When I first started, it was a big mess. I had like huge bubbles, nothing was curing properly. And then this wonderful person on Facebook sent me a message and said, I can help you with your epoxy problems. And his name is Derek Smiley Woodworks. He has a YouTube channel, Facebook group, whatever. And he sent me private videos showing me step by step on how to do epoxy. That's how I learned how to do epoxy. And I've been doing successful epoxy and selling lots of things since then.
So I guess one of the final questions I'll ask, if nobody else has anything, is how did you get involved with Rick and Steve and them over at Shop Talk Live? How did that come about?
I actually don't even remember. It was just, I think one day I got a message on Facebook from Rick saying, hey, you want to be our guest for the show?
Right.
And I never heard of them, either one of them. So I looked him up and I was like, "Ah, sure, I'll be the guest." So I showed up as a guest, and then he messaged me and said, "Hey, you're a good fit. You want to be part of the team?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was fun. I'll do it."
Right.
And I did that for a while, but then I realized it was every Wednesday for 2 hours, which
Right.
was a big chunk of my time.
Yeah.
And it just so happened my youngest daughter has cheer practice. She does, you know, competitive cheer. So every Wednesday she had practice, which I had to drive her to and back. So I just didn't have the time for it. So I told them, "Hey, this is great. I love it. I can't do it every week. That's too much for me. I'll fill in when you need me. I'll jump in, but I just can't commit for every week."
Well, you do a good job on there. You've shared a lot of knowledge on it as well. So,
Oh,
and
thank you. I'm more
the
interested on your story, though. You've been questioning me, but what about you?
well, my story is basically that I started out, like I said, 13 years old. I tried to make my first woodworking pool table, and that went real well. But when I went to college and high school and college, and started learning some stuff in shop and that kind of thing. Got into the engineering side. When I got into engineering, that's when it really started hitting. And so I was about 27, 28 years old at the time that I decided to kind of get into the woodworking a little bit more seriously. And I started out just like you did with something simple. I had the I had a table saw, and I had a scroll saw, and then I had a bandsaw, and that was the three things I started with. Now my bandsaw to this day is still the original one I bought, and everybody's going to laugh because we're talking about old versus young. I still have a three-wheel bandsaw, and anybody who knows about a three-wheel bandsaw, they will break a blade because you're bending that blade three times as it goes around. But if you learn how to use it and not use an extensive amount of pressure on it like you would with a normal two wheel, and you keep the wheels on the top of the pulleys, you can run that thing for quite a while. So I still have a DeWalt, Delta three wheel bandsaw to this day.
That's awesome.
So I started doing that, and then did that for a while. Got into the point where I was with the club and started learning a lot of that. Learned how to do turning during that kind of all that. I learned how to do, because every year we would do a Christmas toy drive, and we would take it to Red Cross or whoever was there that year. And so we started making toys and that kind of thing. So you learned how to do a lot of that as well. Learned a little bit about inlays and things like that, and then got into some cabinet work for a while. But then 6 years ago, because I lived in Western North Carolina and basically grew up. Well, I grew up I was born in Charlotte till I was 7. When mom and dad divorced, we moved to Western North Carolina. At 51 years of age, we decided to move down here to the coast. We're 45 minutes from Atlantic Beach in North Carolina. And so when I moved down here, I went from a 16 by 60 shop to a 10 by 20 building that I had put all my stuff in. So I had no room to do anything. So it was 2 years of just trying to figure out, how can I do that? How can I do this? I happened to get online one day and saw somebody talking about lasers. And with my background with the CNCs and stuff back when I was in school, I really got interested in it. And I also got thinking about the fact that, I'm going to retire in about 6 years. And when I retire, I want to do something. And my wife would really like me to be doing something so I'm not in her hair all the time. So that's when I decided to take and go and start doing some laser work. And that's when I first bought this 60-watt Monport. And it was in my garage. And then it went crazy after that. I've got three lasers right now. I've got two 3D printers, and then, like I said earlier, I've got that Genmitsu 4040. So I'm like everybody else that's on this live right now, is the fact that you get into that one rabbit hole, and then you go to this one, you go to this one. So
Yep.
that started that part, and then I'll finally tell the Santa story right quick as well. I'm also a professional Santa. I have been what they consider a professional for 6 years, but I have done, this will be my 11th season coming up. And my
Wow.
very first season was, my wife she's a nurse. and she worked for a doctor's office. And in the doctor's office one day, they called and said, "We need somebody to play Santa." And I said, "Okay, who are you going to get?" She said, "Well, we want you to come because we think you can fit the suit." Well, I'm going to tell you, that suit was something else. I was also a volunteer firefighter for 20 years. I had on my fire department boots. I had on a velveteen, might as well have been a velveteen outfit that had a loose belt on it and a hat that was too big and it sat down over my head. And so we got on a float and I waved to all the children. Well, the next year, because I was in two fire departments, one of the ladies in the auxiliary worked for a little community center and they needed a Santa because their other one had passed away. Well, I'm still having to shave because I'm in the fire department. So I had the fake beard, but that was the first time I sat down with kids. And when the first time I sat down with children and listened with them and interacted with them, I knew at that point I was hooked. And so from that point on, when I retired from the fire department 6 years ago, that's when I let this. And it was sort of a Tim Allen moment when the beard started coming out and it was all white and I was like, I'm in big trouble. So, it was one of those series. So that's kind of where I started from and where I am. And then I got into the YouTube just so I can do moments like this where we can learn about how people started and where they came from and how they've got to where they are now. It's always interesting to me as a Santa and also just as an individual as well, how people get there and to talk to other people and see how they do things, see how they're doing it differently than we are, learn from them. That just, it fascinates me all the way around. And so that's me in a nutshell.
That's so awesome. I looked you up online before I agreed to, join your,
Right.
live stream. And my husband was there with me and we were looking you up and he's like, "Oh my God, is that the real thing?" He's like, "That's the most awesome job. Who doesn't want to do that?" Like he was so excited about it. It's like, who doesn't want to do that? That's the most exciting job ever.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and well, right here, somebody else, Santa Allen. He's one, and he gifted me a gift a couple of weeks ago. He could not make it to a school, Santa school, and so he allowed me to go in his place. But the one thing you find is the fact that you really have a calling for it. You go to the Santa schools and you learn quite a bit about, if you've got a child that's crying, what can you do? How can you get the photo? Because some people still want just the crying kid photo. Then you can do other things. There's a thing called runaway where if they don't necessarily want that one, we can do one where we're grabbing for it and got this big look of shock like they've run away from us, and you get this going on in the photo and it comes out great. So you learn all these kind of different things, but you really learn also that you have to believe that you're representing or are Santa while you're in that chair or anytime that I'm out. When I'm out looking like this, then I can't be Chris, because if I'm in here by myself, there's things that Santa would never say that I've said in here when something's happened. And so you start to learn those things, but you really fall into it that you are representing something that's way above anything that most people do, and you learn that you really enjoy it. And so that's why I don't think I'm great at it. I think I'm pretty good at it every once in a while, and so I do
You
enjoy
definitely
it.
look the part. I have not seen you play Santa,
Oh
but
yeah.
you look the part. So
Oh yeah.
you
Well,
know that-
I get that out a lot because as a matter of fact, I'll tell one quick story. It just happened yesterday. Now you can see my shirt. It's got little lights all over it now, right? And pretty much if I go out as Santa, I'm gonna have some kind of either Hawaiian shirt on or something like that. Well, yesterday I just happened to have one. It's got little ho 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 wrote all over it. And we were actually in the Harris Teeter getting groceries. And a lady walked by me about 3 times and, just crossing in the aisles and that kind of stuff. And, she would smile and I would smile and move on. But she came up the aisle the 3rd time. And I'll be honest, sometimes the adults are a lot more fun than the children are, because I can take for a minute and I can take you back to your childhood. And so she stopped and she goes, "I've already passed you 3 times and I just wanted to say, hello, Santa." And so I'll do it right here, right quick. "Well, hello, how are you? Good to see you today. And I'm going to tell you, you're being good so far, but have you been good here today? And she said, well, maybe not. And I said, well, you know what? You still got time right now. So you make sure you keep being good. And Santa's always watching you, and do something like that. And to see a child come back out of an adult, that is a lot of fun. I'll tell, and some in the chat already have heard this before, but I'll tell it because I don't think you have. One of the best visits I've had so far, and because I'm a Santa in the Santa house here in our Newbern, and then I do home visits and all this other stuff, and I'll do videos and all kinds of different things. But anyway, I was sitting there, and these two 70-year-old sisters came up. And so one of them stood beside me and the other one sat in my lap. Now, if you come see Santa Chris, you're going to either sit in his lap and you're going to tell him, I don't care how old you are, how young you are, you're going to tell him what you want for Christmas. And so we had gone through that little process, and the one that was sitting in my lap just kept looking. I could see her looking at me while I was talking to her sister. And all of a sudden, she just reached up and grabbed my beard and pulled it. And so I turned around, and when I turned around, she said, oh my gosh, it's real. I said, well, of course it's real. I said, I'm Santa. I said, Santa wouldn't have a fake beard, would he? And so I turned back to tell her sister something, and right as I turned back, this lady's in my lap. She goes, I love you, Santa. And those are the moments that I really love the most, is the fact that when I can take a shot. Now, the one other thing is I carry little coins around, and if a kid recognizes me, or even if an adult recognizes me, they get one of the Santa coins. Santa caught me being good, and so that's fun as well. But it's been a lot of fun, and I will probably do it until I can't do it anymore. That's awesome. How much I enjoy it. So, but I appreciate the vote of confidence, because I work really hard to get this every year. And
you gotta do what you love doing.
Oh yeah.
You said you did wood turning. I actually tried wood turning. I took a few classes, turned a few bowls.
Yeah. Yeah, and I turned bowls, and I turned some pins, and I even made my mom a French rolling pin and that kind of stuff. So, but the thing is I haven't touched that. It's still sitting out in my other building out there now. And now that I've got the CNC out there in that building, I'm starting to relocate some stuff. As you can probably imagine, Santa has a few things for Christmas time. So I'm having to shove all that to one side of the building and build a wall there to kind of wall that off because of the dust you were talking about earlier. But once I get that walled off, I'm going to start doing a little bit on that lathe and stuff as well. So, but that to me, when I was in the club, that was most relaxing, because the difference between it and any other kind of woodworking in my mind was the fact that when you got done, you had made something. It may not have any function, it may not have any value at all, but when you have finished, you've got something that's coved out and all this kind of stuff.
I love doing the lathe. It's just that it was so demanding on the hands.
Yeah, well, that and the constant leaning back and forth on top of that.
I mean, I had carpal tunnel surgery on both of my hands. I was like, I can't do that all day. Like, it's just not gonna work out.
Right. Yeah. Well, and like I said, I learned from an individual who was really, really good at it, and he would use a skew 90% of the time. That was how he did all his work. He hardly ever used any kind of roughing gouge or anything. He used a skew. And going and using that one tool to do all those different things teaches you that technique, because if you get that skew off too much, what happens? It picks in and then it'll flip up on you. And so just learning through him, that was a learning lesson that I'll never forget. Well, we appreciate it, Greg. He's subscribed to both my channel and hers as well, or subscribe to both her channels, and then need support the makers. Yep. And so, but like I said, up top here, you'll see her information one more time before we get off here. So if you would go on there, she was nice enough to come and visit with us and tell us her story, and we very much apprite it.
This was so much fun.
Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I always love time when I get to talk about myself.
So, well, Santa does too. So, but anyway, I appreciate everybody that was in the chat this evening. Before you go, if you don't mind, one more time, I'll ask you to either like or subscribe either to her channels or to my channel, and like this video, either if you're watching her through hers or through me, because YouTube's getting a little more difficult to navigate, but any of those would be great to help. And so, and you have a good night as well there, Greg.
Thank you everyone for spending time with us. Thank you, Chris, for having me. This was awesome.
You're very welcome. I very much appreciate it. And I appreciate you being.
I'm sure I'll see you on Facebook.
You sure will. So, well, everybody have a wonderful evening, and we will see you in 2 weeks. All right.
Yeah, that's right.